Finish the conversation with His Excellency, the Governor of Nasarawa State. And we have in the studio with us someone who is going to talk about education. We had touched on it with our previous guest, but we're going to go deeper into it because it's a major conversation to have in this season. But if you want to be a part of this conversation, you can tweet at us using the hashtag #ThePlatformNG. And we're also live on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Twitter, The Platform NG, Instagram, The Platform Nigeria, Facebook, The Platform. So thank you for being a wonderful audience. Quickly, I will introduce my special guest that is with us now. She is Mrs. Bolaji Usime, the Chief Executive Officer, Global International Schools and Colleges, and also the trustee and co-founder, Education Reformation Innovation Team.
That's right.
I got it right. You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Dr.
for
Lara.
having me.
So we're very glad to have you, ma'am. So now we've been talking about education and the changes that have been going on. The landscape has really changed. There are issues with, there are private schools, big private schools and small private schools. How are they going to cope? The government schools and the changes are going on and being able to deliver education to the children without, losing out in the system that we've placed them in. We want to hear your thoughts about that.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. The first thing I would say is that it's a great wake-up call. This is a sector that has needed serious transformation, and we've been talking about this forever. We're talking about digital natives, we're talking about technology, we're talking about the fourth revolution. And we've been talking about this to government forever, that this was going to come. So for us, COVID has brought the right disruption in the education sector. And we're hoping that government is paying attention, because basically the whole world has moved ahead when it comes to technology. And what has happened now has thrown a lot of schools without preparation into technology. And guess what? Everybody is now having to go online, and a lot of institutions are not prepared. So that's one of the first things I want to say, is that this is a welcome disruption. The whole world has disrupted education. It's unfortunate that students are having to sit at home for such a long time. I've been at home for 5 weeks, for example, and then to have to learn, but it is important. And one of the reasons why it's important is that we are in a technology age. We are looking after the Generation Z. Generation Z was born into technology. They are digital natives. So can you imagine doing the traditional for students who are born in technology? Anybody between the age of 11, 25, my daughter lived and grew up on technology. So we cannot teach the industrial way. In those days, they were teaching us traditional. The teacher stands in front of the class, teaches you, but now it has to be through technology. So this is a very, very welcome change for us. I do believe that COVID is doing a great thing for us. It's a bad thing that has happened. A lot of people have lost their lives. The devastation is unimaginable, but for the education sector, it is overdue for disruption. And we're very happy with what is happening. Yes, when I look at what I did, because as soon as this happened, and my teachers had to quickly go remote, but luckily, I had been doing this. So it wasn't a shock. I knew that we were in the 21st century. My young people would tell me, my students would say to me, Mrs. Usime, we need to interact. We don't want teachers to stand in front of us and be teaching us. It's boring. So we had introduced technology even since Ebola time. When Ebola came, we had introduced technology, we were teaching. And then we've had courses on technology, because we do courses overseas, like abroad in Canada. And most of these courses are by teachers abroad. They're virtual courses. So we're used to it. So it was easy to transit to remote learning by going online. And we have a powerful platform that we're using now. So it hasn't been so bad for us because we were prepared. But a lot of schools were not prepared. Parents, certainly unprepared. Government, unprepared. So it's a really huge shock. So how we're going to navigate this particular crisis and turn it into an opportunity is what we need to really be talking about with government, with parents, with students, with everybody. We need to have this conversation now. We must not lose this new normal. This new normal is good for the education sector. So it's what we're going to do going forward is what we should be talking about.
So for those who were not prepared, what should they begin to do now, and how should they begin to, because obviously, there's a school calendar already,
yes,
so
absolutely.
Things need to continue to move on. So how should they begin to respond, quick responses that they can do, because building up a technology system in itself is intense.
Yes.
So what are the little things that can begin, the little innovative things they can begin to do whilst building the big systems that are required?
Absolutely. I'm sure you're aware of the battle that is going on with the Federal Ministry of Education and ASU. and the ministry is saying go online, and they're like, go online. Is that how you go online? Going online is a plan. You need to plan towards it. Okay, fine, it's an emergency now. But luckily, what in this industry, a lot of countries have been online. My daughter rolled online immediately in her university. Unfortunately, Nigerian universities, federal universities, the students are home and they're not online now. It's really, really sad. It's, and this is something that we have talked to them about at NUC. So what I'm saying is that for schools, at school level, it's a little easier. We are talking about maybe 300 children, but when you're talking about thousands of children, how are you going to navigate them online? These are thousands of kids. Some universities have about 10,000. How are you going to navigate them online? But from the school's point of view, in terms of secondary schools, primary schools, early years, it's been easy. I'm a member of APEN. APEN, we've had webinars. We are training our teachers. We've been talking to ourselves. Practically, I would say most APEN schools are online now. And what we do is that we had an online manual. In Global, what we did was, we did a survey, first of all. When we had to move online in April, we used Zoom and Edmodo, and we even had tests online. All our reports went by Edvis to our parents, because we were already prepared. So we did that online, but what we found is that we needed to have a unified platform. So we did a survey. We wanted to know how our parents coping, because parents were calling me, I don't know this one. No. So I said, go to YouTube and go and get your
Because it's a lot of work for parents in this time.
It's huge work, but then it's learning. There's nothing better than learning. I've learned a lot in these 6 weeks, and it's been amazing. That's the space the whole world is in, and Nigeria needed to get into that space by fire, by force. And now they're in, we hope they'll stay there. So what we did was we did a survey for parents, for teachers. We needed to know from parents, how many laptops do you have, how many devices do you have, do you have internet at home? Diesel must be there, power to whatever. So parents were prepared, and then the teachers had to go online. We did a lot of training for teachers. We are partnering with, we're subscribing to Microsoft platform by Dynamis. So because we're subscribing to that, it's a unified platform. It has everything on the platform. So for students, it was easy. It was easy for them. So because we had trained them, and we had also talked to parents to support them. And the teachers were working online is tough. It's much, much, much tougher than doing physical face-to-face. And my my teachers were working sometimes, I will say on WhatsApp, students are still engaging them at 9:30 in the night. Naturally,
there's no time.
There's no time. It's anywhere, any place, any time. So parents, students, and teachers now found that, oh my goodness, these kids are going to be engaging me anywhere. Because every time you go on the platform, they'll just, with the teams, they can just call you at home, wherever you are, and say, teacher, I need this help, which is good. Which tells you that learning is 24/7. Isn't that what we want? So for example, if your daughter was in school and she didn't understand a particular topic, all you do is go in online, and the recording of the teacher is there. Let her go back and go and listen to the recording. All the notes we have is all online. So everything we have, PowerPoints, all the recording, it's online. So I think it's a beautiful thing that has happened. It's going to reinforce the knowledge of the students. It's going to get them working 24/7. They have access to about 800 resources. How can it can't get better than that? And so, with Nigeria having very low in terms of results, at WAEC, we're at about, basically most states at about 46% that are passing the WAEC exam 5 credits. That means we have low learning outcomes. So how do we improve on the low learning outcomes? This is the kind of platform that will help us to leapfrog, to scale, and to ensure our students are learning and learning well, basically.
We need to hold this education now because we need to go quickly. The governor of Lagos State is ready to join us here at the platform. So we have to cut to that right now.
It began like a fable. It came on the airwaves. It was said something was happening in Wuhan, a city in China. An outbreak of a virus, the coronavirus. As the days went by in 2 weeks, the ripples began to grow. It hit the streets of Europe and the United States. It no longer seemed far away. It was now beginning to spread till it came right to our doorstep. COVID-19 has arrived and many were not sure if Nigeria was prepared. The government got into action, the healthcare workers into full swing, the people into panic mode, with hand sanitizers reaching exorbitant prices. The entire nation was not sure how to handle this or what to expect in the coming days. Today, the COVID-19 pandemic has indeed taken the whole world by storm, leading to a global shutdown. In Nigeria, Lagos, Abuja, and Ogun State have been shut down for more than 1 month, with other cities also affected by this pandemic. The situation continues. Businesses, families, individuals, all affected. More than 1,500 people have been tested positive, with cases growing daily. Unfortunately, deaths have also been recorded, but the good news is so many people have recovered from this disease and returned home to their families. The question on the minds of many is how long will this last and when will we return to normalcy? What does the future hold for the workplace, social gatherings, and business? Indeed, this is a big question. But one thing we know is that there is light at the end of this tunnel. The Platform Nigeria celebrates all medical and frontline workers in the battle against this epidemic. Some have given their lives to keep us safe. Nigeria and the world will forever be grateful to you all.
Welcome back, and we are going to the Governor of Lagos State, His Excellency Governor Sanwo-Olu. Welcome, sir, to the platform. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, Pastor Koji, I can hear you loud and clear. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for taking out time at a very short notice from your busy schedule to be with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I just had to come out of also a security meeting that we're having, and it's still going on now. But it's glad to be on your show. I think this is the second or third time I have had the opportunity.
First of all, I must tell you that we are on the streets, and word on the streets commend your leadership, exemplary leadership in leading during this COVID-19 period. So on behalf of the people, we want to say thank you for the leadership that you have provided for this state and also at the national level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. These are all trying times for all of us, and I think we cannot continue just to give excuses. We just need to continue to have an A team at all times and see how well we can put this behind us.
All right, sir. So I have 5 questions to ask. I have 20 minutes. I want to get all my questions in. So the first question is, how worried are you about the impact of the pandemic on the state's ability to generate revenue?
Well, I mean, like any chief executive who look into the future and see dwelling revenues coming in, you will be worried. So I'm certainly worried. And if you look at our revenue profile, it's largely driven by PAYE, which is a tax of all of the staff of both the private and the public sector citizens in our state. They constitute a very decent amount of the revenue that we generate. And so what that means is that when there are reduction in jobs, or maybe when companies cannot pay their staff as regular as they should pay, then you certainly can begin to see some decline in your future earnings. But what are the things that we think we need to do? We'll set up a small post-COVID cabinet war committee. And so one of the things we're looking at is what are the new creative ways in which we can have new revenues coming in. And so that will happen in our ability to have services that are not on our front line, but are things that we need to raise a capacity internally for us to be able to entice our citizens to come in and raise those revenues. And what do I mean? Revenues around giving CFOs, revenues around services that are customer dependent, that they want this service, but they want government to do it quicker and faster for them. You know, what is the turnaround time when people come and ask for building approval? What is the turnaround time for people to have planning approval, for people to have title documents? You know, these are some of the things that we on our own can say to ourselves, we need to up our game such that a lot more people can come back to us, and these are services that they require, and we'll see some growth in our revenue lines in those new areas. And also, let's look at the informal sector, people that are really not doing anything in terms of being on the bracket, So it's getting to a stage where the informal sector, even if it is 1,000 naira, even if it is 2,000 naira, we need to be very creative on how we come into terms with that. And part of the things that we need to be doing in going forward is data. Data is so critical now for us as a state, and I imagine for us as a nation, that it becomes, what can help both national and sub-national be able to account for their citizens, know what they're doing, and be able to, serve them better. And by so doing, you can still see some improvement in your revenue. But, I've also had conversations with the organized private sector, and I've said to them that we're at a time where we cannot afford to have any form of job losses, right? As much as possible, let us keep our people in jobs. Let us ensure that it is not only profitability that is defining, our goal, but sustainability. Like Jack Ma said, all of us need to be alive throughout this year. It's only when we're alive throughout this year that we can begin to talk about shareholder value, putting money aside for dividend payments, and all of that. Now is the time for all of us, both the private sector and the public sector, to see how we can creatively keep our people in jobs. Yes, they might not have 100%, participation on the day-to-day basis, but we certainly must begin to put them into those jobs.
All right, sir. I want to ask this question. One of the lessons that COVID-19 pandemic has taught the world is that there is no such thing as over-preparedness. In a post-COVID world, how do you intend to balance the budgetary allocation to ensure maximum preparedness for these unexpected pandemics and government spend on critical infrastructure and human capital development?
Well, that's a tough question, and it's a very difficult balance. One has to think, very quickly on how to be able to do it. Like you said, nobody had ever had to plan or prepare for a massive pandemic like this. So one of the things we've done or we're doing is that let's plan for the best, let's hope for the worst. And so what that means is it's clear to all of us that our health facility, both in terms of capital, human, and infrastructure, is so critical to any form of government. So that becomes, a to-do list for us. And part of the things that we have started doing even this year is to see how we increase our budgetary allocation on the health sector. So we've said to ourselves that over the next 4 years, we'll increase that budget to as close to 18-20% as possible. And I think this year we'll have about 12-13%. So what that means is that we're even probably going to be spending a lot more in that sector. So that becomes a critical sector for all of us right down the value chain. Education is also pretty critical because that is the future. That is the future that we see that we can give to the population coming behind us. After education is to see what are the other things: balance, security, and infrastructure. Infrastructure is what you use to recreate the economy, that people can have sustainability in terms of how well they move from one part or the other, how well you create, their turnaround time, how do people, relate on the roads, transportation, housing, power. But one of the things that this has taught us is that we all need to be very innovative and very creative. Things that we can do from our residence or from our offices that we don't need to go out to do. Let's now begin to build those capabilities internally. So government too needs to look at this budget and see how do they need to improve infrastructure in information technology and everything around technology, as it were. Because we've seen that technology is also a strong enabler that can help us serve our people remotely and also be able to bring governance to people quicker and faster, right? But security is something that you still have to spend on, and infrastructure is also still something you still have to spend on, because given the size of the country that we have, given the size of the state, we need to continue to, provide major infrastructure, for our people. So the balancing thing there is to see how we cut, on our overhead expenses. What are the trimmings that we need to have as a government? What are the things that we can do away with? What are the wastages that we can very well, compartmentalize? And what are the capital expenditure that we need so critical that will leapfrog us. And like I said, health will be critical, education will certainly be critical. Infrastructure, both real hard infrastructure and the internet infrastructure is also critical now for information technology, because it has shown us that these are some places where we also need to put money in, and ensure that security, which is also a paramount, to do for government, we do not waste time on all of these things at all.
All right, I want to go to the health sector, but the way the question is many private hospitals are now beginning to turn away sick patients due to the fears of COVID-19. What is the state government doing to prevent avoidable deaths that are beginning to occur as a result of hospitals turning away critically ill patients who actually may not have COVID-19 but can't access quality health facilities as a result of some of the recent closures of such facilities?
Well, I mean, it's a very tough learning time for all of us. So yes, there are few private hospitals who did not on their own went through the protocol of having the capacity to have to be able to treat a COVID-19 patient, and who erroneously had brought some of these patients into their facility, and they've all gotten infected. So all of us have learned that very quickly. So, but what have we done as a government is to see that we cannot do it by ourselves. So we want to develop the capability of this private health institution. So we have a pharma, which is a government reform agency that scales up, their process and their capacity for them to be able to understand the protocol and be able to teach and treat COVID-19 patients. So that is going on, right? And we have that seamlessly with some institutions that have said that they actually want to be able to treat, COVID-19 patients. And we're indeed glad and happy for that. The few ones that we've had to either close down or need to go and reassess is just for a week or two. So what we're doing is we're just trying to disinfect them. We're trying to do a lot of cleanup, such that they can open up, a week down the line and begin to take in new patients who will come in regularly for other illnesses or sicknesses. So it's a balancing thing too. We have communicated to them transparently to say that if you want to be able to bring in and treat COVID-19 patients, these are the protocols. Let us work with you. Let us help develop, the trainings that your staff require so that you don't infect yourselves and infect your staff. That is going on. We've done that with a few of the hospitals. And the ones, that have done that mistakenly, we have also reprimanded them and we've cleaned them up. We're going to open some of them back in the days and the weeks, ahead. But what I want to say is that the patients themselves, people need to be very transparent when they go to our hospitals. People need to give their medical history. People need to be able to tell their doctors what are their preconditions, where have they been to, what have been their travel pattern. It's only when you also transparently give your medical professionals this information that they'll be able to very quickly either diagnose or ascertain, what needs or what you require. And they also need to be able to prepare themselves against what new patient they have in front of them. So it's a balancing thing that we've had to do both with the health professionals, and we're communicating that also with our citizens, right? But even for us as a government, all our 27 secondary health facilities, even our tertiary one, is not a COVID-19 hospital. We've deliberately taken our patients to isolation centers. We have 6 of them now, and we also have designated hotels that are holding beds, about 10 or 12 of those ones, which we're currently using for strictly COVID-19 cases. So in all of our 27 secondary health facilities, they're still treating regular, walk-in patients. They're still treating gynae cases. They're still treating accident and emergency cases. And LASUD, which is our tertiary health facility, is still treating all the retinue of cases, outside of COVID-19, because we realize that people will still fall sick. People still need medical attention that has nothing to do with COVID-19. So we are doing that, and we'll ensure that, our infectious disease hospital, which is at mainland, have the capacity to treat COVID-19, and the other isolation centers that were created, including Bagara that we just opened yesterday, and one or two other facilities that I did mention yesterday that were open.
Thank you. Just ask one more question. You must be one of the busiest men now. So ask one final question. Now, there is a saying that one should never let a crisis go to waste, because it's believed that during a time of crisis, it gives liberty, in some cases, to leadership to even take certain steps that people may have, been apprehensive about. What opportunities have you identified in this period for Lagos State in terms of improving how the state will be run in the future that will become a norm going forward?
Well, thank you very much. And I think it speaks to your own opening comment, because I listened to you in your opening comment earlier today, which is where you said that it's really what happens post-COVID, that will really determine who we are, and not currently what we're doing now. Yes, it's great to be there, managing all the crises, but really, what lessons do we learn? How do we respond, even post-COVID-19, as people in front position of leadership, as a government, and as a nation? And I think that speaks to, our being. I think one of the strongest things I have learned, and I will be taking into my decisions going forward, is that we need data. We need to be able to predict where people are. What are people doing? What are the demography of the citizens you have? Let us be able to have a functional data and an identity. The countries that I imagine have been able to do a lot quicker and faster compared to us, have identity, such that, when people come in, it's a unique identity. Who Jide Sanwo-Olu is specific, and it's something that you can hold on and can see. So that's some of the things that we believe that we need to do, and we need to be able to wrap up, capabilities in such areas. And there's really nothing like, being over-prepared. These are some of the things that I've also learned, that in a crisis situation like this, you certainly should not be afraid to make mistake. Make mistake, learn from it, very quickly move on, and see how you develop new capabilities even after making such mistake. So for us is to see how you plan out after a war. So some of the things we will be doing is to see how we ensure that governance, get closer to people, governance get faster, to people, and governance, is not something that you procrastinate for a long time. If you need to take a decision, if you need to take a bold decision, take it quickly, take it faster, and stay with it. Stay with the things that would endure. Stay with things that will push, your narratives, positively. And more importantly, be able to communicate transparently with your people. Even when things are going on, tell people the truth. Let people know where you are about all of the things you are doing. When you communicate with people, it helps them being able to plan better, as your citizens, as your workers, as your fellow in the hospital or in the church. So communication is critical, and you must continue, to do that. Make sure that, you surround yourself with people too that can help you, bring continuously a conversation where, you can solve problems, because solving of problems is something that I realize that a lot of people do not even know what it is or what it takes, to do it. You must ensure that you give people a bit to look, what are the problems we need to solve now? What are the critical solutions that we see, now, and how do we solve them? So for me, these are some of the things that I'm taking away from all of this experience, and it will begin to determine, what kind of leadership you have going forward.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Thank you once again for the leadership that you are providing during this time. And may the Almighty God bless you indeed in what you're doing.
Thank you very much, Pastor Koitu. And you're doing a great job. And thank you very much for being there for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, we'll be back, and we will be having the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo.
We will get through this. We will get through the night. We will not faint. We will arise, and we will win this fight. Though there are mountains, fear casts a shadow now. Yet we will stand with God on our side till we see a turn around. Rise from defeat, rise from despair, rise, oh Nigeria, this is your finest hour. Our comrades are falling, and tears are in our eyes. But some standing on their watch are fighting to save the day. So roll up your sleeves now. It's time to join the fight. The world has changed, so now we must face a new tomorrow. Rise from defeat, rise from despair, rise, oh Nigeria, this is your finest hour. Rise from defeat, rise from despair, rise, oh Nigeria, this is your finest hour. Rise from defeat, step by step, rise from despair, you reach the mountain rise, oh Nigeria, this is your finest hour. Step by step, we'll reach the mountain top. This is your
Back to the platform studios, and we just finished listening to His Excellency Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Governor of Lagos State. But we still have with us Mrs. Bolaji Osime. And before we went on the break, we had talked about education, but we had focused a lot on private education. Now we need to go to public education, because that's such a big matter right now. How do we balance, and what work really needs to be done in terms of shoring up in days like COVID and even then post-COVID? There are a lot of reforms that need to go into that. Well, I know you can't speak from the reform side, but at least what would be your word of advice or work that needs to be done for the people in power that are listening?
Okay, basically, we actually work with government because we have education reform innovation team. So it's an ecosystem of about 160 education people in education who are in private sector. So we actually work along and we align with government because we know that this education business is everybody's business. You know, we all have to be involved. So when it comes to public sector, there are at least, I would say, about 80% of our children are in public sector right now. And that gives you a lot of concern because there's already a gap in achievement. So in terms of even achieving, we had a problem. So what are we going to do? So basically what we're saying to government is, number one, connectivity. The thing is, if you go online and they cannot download, there's a problem. So government needs to now ensure, post-COVID, we have internet in all our schools, number one, in all our universities. All the money that has been donated, let them just put it in the internet. So if you can do that one, they can have access to high quality, curriculum, high quality teaching. Teachers also can go online and go and, self-develop, and they can be taught. That's number one. Policies of government has to change. We're in COVID now. Our policies, our curriculum, number 1, has 18 subjects. How are you going to teach 18 subjects online? That's for GSS 3. How do you do that? In the time that all the information you need is on Google. Why make your students study so much like that? So what we're saying is reduce the subjects in curriculum, ensure the subjects are online, ensure that teachers are teaching and deepening their teaching so they understand, because it's about the new jobs now. We don't know what jobs are in the future. So when you're talking about building for the 21st century, you are looking at AI, you are looking at robotics, you are looking at digital learning, you're looking at all of those things. Government must now prepare Nigerians for the new 21st century, the fourth revolution, which is digital. So we cannot live in the past. We're still living in the past. We still have typewriter in our curriculum. So government needs to wake up, period, as far as I'm concerned. Change the curriculum, reduce the curriculum, train public sector. The reason why I think we have a challenge with technology is capacity. So a lot of people who are doing policies in government probably don't, or they are my generation, so they're like, what are you talking about? So we need to get some people, younger people in there to just turn the whole thing around. Let us have a policy on digitalization of the curriculum. Let us have a policy on how schools are going to be trained. Train all government officials. We are moving into a new era. So our new normal is this. Hello, somebody. They need to hear. It's our new normal. We need to change the way we are teaching our children. So that's my message for government.
Fantastic.
Okay, so we've talked about all these changes that need to happen, but parents are still, some parents are not even educated enough. Yeah. How are they going to cope? What advice do you have for the parents? Because I read one of your articles, somebody interviewed you. Education starts from the home, but now it's taking place in the home.
So that's adult education is critical. You know, government needs to move into this. They're doing adult education, but with this now, because a lot of children are home now, and their parents can't really help them. Even parents who are very smart or who are going to do, they'll look at some of the subjects and say, "Me, I don't understand this math. What are you talking about?" You know. So parents have told me that, "Look, I don't understand what you're. Just tell the children." So basically, we need education in the home. Now we're in this space. In fact, some low-income schools parents now have actually started teaching their children at home. Yeah, because there's radio. Lagos State has done radio, and there's a lot of stuff. So, but when they're teaching them on radio, you need somebody in the home to be able to assist them. So they are actually doing that. So all the stuff that Lagos State and Federal Ministry of Education has put online post-COVID should be used for adult education. So we must focus on educating the whole populace. We must focus on educating the whole populace of this nation. Otherwise, the reason why we had those criminal issues and we had violence coming on the street is because of lack of education. A lot of them couldn't feed themselves. They were hungry. And they could have been skilled, technical vocations, simple. They could have been trained to do something with their hands, you know, make a mask or whatever. But they all ran into the street because they couldn't eat. So government needs to sit back, go back to the drawing board. How do we use technology? And technology makes it easier, more effective, it's cheaper, it can reach so many people all over the world because it's accessible. And it's affordable. So we need to go and repurpose how we are doing education. We must look at our values. We must take politics out of education. We must focus on the child, and we must move forward in this nation. We don't have a choice. COVID has made this happen. If we don't change after this, we can never change again. That's just the truth as far as I'm concerned. This is big as far as I'm concerned for education.
It is big.
Yeah.
It is big. The challenges seem enormous, but there are also opportunities. It's only opportunities that can come out of it. And we hope that we see these opportunities. And like you said, if we don't change now, really, then when else will we change?
And parents that are actually also worried about school fees, what we have done is to go online, and we've reduced the cost. Obviously, we don't have, like PHCN came yesterday, government needs to tell them to back off. You know, there's so many things government needs to do because PHCN is still charging us, everybody's still charging our parents. So what we're doing now is breaking it down, and we're charging monthly, and you can do e-learning. So I would say to schools, be a bit compassionate. Some people are losing their jobs. Talk to your parents, have a conversation, and make sure the kids are educated, period.
Mrs. Sime,
thank you so much
for being
thank
such
you.
an amazing guest
Thank
on the
you.
platform today. Thank you. We have to go straight now to the main hall where the platform interviews.
The Platform Nigeria celebrates all medical and frontline workers in the battle against this epidemic. Some have given their lives to keep us safe. Nigeria and the world will forever be grateful to you all.